Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, a serial technology entrepreneur who's launched 30 companies, failed at 20 of those, but scaled 10 of those to success. And I turned that roller coaster of a ride into my book, Fail Hard, Win Big. And this is where I teach you how to turn failure into your biggest competitive advantage and how custom software always played a pivotal role in every win. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We're a nearshore software engineering firm working with other companies to scale their engineering teams. And today we have a fun guest, an engineering professional, Tobe Sullivan, who works for a company called PFF, which stands for Pro Football Focus. Toby has been an industry veteran throughout engineering, working for lots of big names out there. We're going to have some fun. Toby, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Yeah. It's exciting to hear about your journey, and it's cool that you put out the book. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
Well, thank you. And I had to think about, this is a story I've always wanted to tell, but I'm like, do I really want to publicize that I've failed at 20 of my ventures? And one of my buddies is a retired Major League Baseball player who has 3 World Series rings. And he said to me, Steve, are you stupid? If you were a baseball player, you'd be batting .333, you'd be in the Hall of Fame. And it kind of helped put it in perspective. But learning from failures, unfortunately, I wish there was a better way to learn, but that's how we all seem to do it.
I mean, yeah. And it's one of those things where I trained in jiu-jitsu for a long time. And it was one of those things where you learn a lot more from those training sessions where you lose, and you lose hard.
When you get punched in the face or knocked out, you're going to remember what to do next time.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's why, as a blue belt, you take a lot of beatings because everybody wants to wrestle you. You're knowledgeable enough to be dangerous, but you're not quite going to beat up on them. So it's kind of like that happy medium where white belts come at you, black belts come at you, and you're just taking partners from all sides. But again, the ones you lose, especially to a lower belt, you're going to remember those. You're going to be embarrassed. So those failures are important for growth.
Toby, you're kind of like the guy's guy here. You're a technology engineering professional, head of engineering at a firm that focuses on NFL football, which are, I know technology and football are 2 of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Let's hear your story and how you evolved to this role.
Yeah. I mean, well, I obviously played football my whole life growing up. I was a huge fan. And when I got into the tech scene, it was also kind of a homespun thing. Mom worked for O'Reilly out in Sebastopol, California, the publishing house, and used to bring home like Java in a Nutshell books, learn about that stuff, right? Brought that into a college mindset. And my first job, I was actually writing Perl for an embedded email client. I don't recommend it.
Are you old enough for that?
Yeah. And 42, so just barely, but it was an older school kind of thing. And again, I don't recommend it, but went from there into more traditional kind of PHP backends, and then pivoted that into more of a front end role for, .NET and basic vanilla web services. I was writing stuff when it was like jQuery was all the rage. And from there, kind of graduated into more of a leadership platform. I would say graduated, but let's be real, you're kind of pushed into it after a little while. You're the talkative dev with people skills, especially back in the day, those weren't so ubiquitous. And so people would shove you into that leadership position.
Not many football players who are software engineers.
It was an interesting thing. What started that journey at Stanford. So it was one of those things where it kind of had brains and brawn, and it worked out. Anyways, yeah. So it was one of those things where going into leadership was something that I felt was almost like a lot of people forced onto you, but I didn't know what I was missing. Making a difference in people's lives and making that impact in the business. It was addicting. I liked wielding that sort of power. And so started out at some mom and pop shops, and ended up at a place called StockX, which was a little unicorn startup in Detroit. There's a really great TED Talk if you ever want to check it out from the founder, Josh Luber. But it talks about this unknown billion-dollar industry for streetwear and sneakers and how no one was capitalizing on this. And Dan Gilbert, the entrepreneur that he is, saw the potential in it, invested in it, and we took it to task and, kind of grew like a rock star overnight. Was one of those things where you go 0 to 1 real quick, lack the infrastructure, lack the means, but you learn a lot at failure and doing it wrong and all those things. And so I got to be a part of that journey very early on until I would say it hit maturity. And then since then, they've been trying to go public. And that was a great exit window for me. Audible and Amazon came to knock on my door and say, how's it going? Would you like to join us over here? And I was a huge Audible fan. And a part of my pride really wanted to see if I could pass that FANG trivia gauntlet for computer science.
That's what Amazon's infamous for.
Yeah. And so got into that and, obviously spent 5 years there. So that worked out and was a director of technology there and, led a lot of the mobile space there and front end teams. And by the end was embedded into some of the back end teams as well and had a great time there. And, towards the end of that journey, PFF came to me and said, would you like to work in football? And I said, are you kidding me? If there's one thing I like more than audiobooks, it's football. Absolutely. And joined up with them about 6 months back. And it's been a terrific journey as the head of their engineering department. And we're really looking to revolutionize the way that they provide football data and data science models to the teams, incorporating some new AI tech as everyone is, making some MCPs and whatnot. And it's great. I guess that's my elevator pitch. It's where I got to where I am.
I love it. Now tell us more about PFF, Pro Football Focus.
Yeah. So, it started, if I recall the history correctly, like at a bar in the UK. Some guy was just like fantasy football, made it up and started grading players at their position. So, what are you doing in your role at your position on any given play? And how well are you doing that? And so offensive lineman, do you block well? Defensive lineman, did you fill the gap? Did you do your assignment? Did you make a tackle behind the line of scrimmage? Did you get a sack? Whatever. All these things can have plus minus grades. And over the course of a season, you'll get graded. It's what we're known for, but we do a lot more than that with the analytics and the, I'd call it relevant data for the teams. Everyone can track static data, which is things like passing yards, receiving yards, stuff that every casual person knows. But, how well your defensive line is affecting your secondary coverage, or, what hand is down in a 3 technique. I realize we're tracking that. It's like, who does that? Who tracks these kind of statistics and this kind of data that the normal person just wouldn't care about? And so this is definitely for the crunchier fan, for the person that used to play, that watches it, for the coaches, for the, really sharp bettors, people that really want that data that no one else even knows to look for. That's where they're coming for us. And that's what we do, in a nutshell, I guess. But my direct league and what I'm doing there as an organization is we handle a lot of the team stuff, going to the AFCA for the American Football Coaches Association and talking to the coaches there, going to the combine, talking to them there, getting feedback, talking to the staffers, realizing we're rolling out, feature A, B, and C. What do you think about this? How would this be useful in your daily lives? And I'll say that almost everybody that works at PFF was at one time either playing football or coaching football. We have a lot of software engineers, don't get me wrong, but everybody has that Venn diagram that intersects because you couldn't speak the language and fit in there unless you did some kind of a role in football at some point in your life. It's going to go right over your head what we're doing there if you don't. So, but it's a great place to work. Culture is amazing.
Who are PFF's clients?
All the NFL and NCAA teams. So literally, you name it, there are clients. We're starting to tackle the FCS now, but we only go down to college. We don't do high school yet. We might look into it. But yeah, that's the clients. Then we have a public facing side as well with like our PFF.com. We do some fantasy, some betting, some articles, some media content, podcasts, as well as YouTube videos and whatnot. Yeah. And so, it's both, but I would say our bigger market is definitely the teams in the NCAA and NFL side.
Well, selfishly, I don't think I've been excited to talk about another company. This is very cool stuff. Tell us from a tech perspective, what are some projects you're working on?
Yeah. So one of the main things that you do in coaching and in playing football is game plan, right? And so a lot of the things you're doing is you're looking up statistics for reports. So we're currently working on things where we're going to make our dashboards and our reporting a lot more convenient, a lot easier to find. You don't have access to our business side of the things with the teams. No one does. You have to have a pretty expensive account with us to do that. But it's right now a series of filters and it's not super intuitive. It makes sense to a good football mind, but the user interface needs cleaning up. You need to be able to save these reports you spend so much time working on, game planning, making some of these things a little bit more automated, a little easier to use, a little more intuitive. The second thing is film. If you played any sport ever, you watch a lot of film. And making sure that we're integrating proper data into our film is going to be huge in the future. I'll give you an example. There's something you can do with computer vision where there's a route you're supposed to run. I was a wide receiver when I played. And so there's a route tree and all the routes you're always going to run. But we'll just say like a simple out route, right? So you can draw on the screen where that out route's going to go, but then also overlay that with what the receiver actually did. maybe he was avoiding a coverage scheme. Maybe he was doing something to get off press coverage and man-to-man coverage at the line. There's a myriad of reasons why you might not run the exact route you're supposed to, but how that affects that and the data science behind how that affects a route being run, the timing of the play, everything else. It's really cool when you're watching film and you can have those overlays and those shadows to be able to see that stuff, as well as be able to just tap a player and really quickly see all their stats, all their previous plays, every other play that they've ever run like this, every other play they've ever run like this against this exact team or this exact coverage. These things are wonderful to be able to do. Right now, it's a pretty bare bones video system. So being able to give all these new features and all these amazing analytical tools to teams, coaches, staffers, it makes all the difference. It really kind of drives our competitive advantage against our competition. So, yeah.
So I imagine you're just dealing with an enormous amount of data from every direction, including video data that you have to convert and analyze. Is data kind of one of the biggest challenges you have to tackle in
100%.
being the head of engineering for PFF?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no bigger challenge. I definitely think it was probably pretty attractive to PFF, me coming over from a big AWS store like Audible, Amazon, and dealing with big data all the time, to be able to take this job on, because that's literally what they do. Their systems, I mean, it's not just one video stream, right? You have video from 3 different angles. So you've got 3 different streams. You've got video overlaid with computer vision video. You've got all these different things you're doing. So it's not just streaming that. That would be one part of it. But more than that, it's the amount of data, right? It's not just, hey, give me your passing yards. It's give me an entire season's worth of data for an NCAA team, right? In one go, in one report. It's a ton. So optimizing that is always the challenge. And taking what you've been doing forever and kind of trying to raise that operational maturity with leading edge and new innovative technologies is always the challenge of balancing that, because you don't, fix what's not broken. But if you never innovate and kind of change over the years, then your stuff's going to become stale and brittle. You know how that goes. And it just leads to tech debt and horrible.
Well, man, I'm trying to not smile ear to ear just because I'm a big football fan.
Sure,
All right.
sure.
So I am originally from Chicago, and unfortunately, I'm a Chicago Bears fan.
Yeah, love that.
Statistically speaking, do we have any chance of being any good in the next 20 years?
I mean, speaking as a Detroit guy, you did take our offensive coordinator. So
Thank you for that, because our offense has sucked since 1985.
And I will say I've seen a lot of promising things out of Ben Johnson's Caleb Williams era, where he's doing great things. You look a lot better than you did last year. Last year, you looked lost. I'll say there's always a chance, but if I was a betting man, I wouldn't take you very deep into the playoffs. I'll say that.
All right. And I guess this is a software engineering and technology show, so we should probably get back to that.
Yeah.
Tell me about your software engineering team. How many you have, the work model, how you go about leading the team?
So we've got probably 10 to 20 on each side. We've got, consumer side, we've got the team side, depending on what we're working on. So anywhere from 30 to 50, it fluctuates. We're a pretty small crew. We don't have a huge shop. And the way that we handle things and the kind of specialty you need to really work into the software and understand how it works, I don't really love the idea of ever expanding into a bigger corporation. I think that keeping it at least for what we do and how we do it, the software teams, it makes sense to have a 1 pizza team or a 2 pizza team as you measure them sometimes.
There's your Amazon talk.
Yeah, exactly. But you really, for the kind of work we're doing and what we're doing, you need a certain amount of knowledge. And even if we could find 1,000 developers that knew how to do what we do, I don't know that would make us go any faster. We're kind of at a great size where we maybe need 5, 10 more people tops ever. And as long as we can keep fluctuating in that realm, I think we're going to be great. But yeah, we do. Our back end is Elixir, which not a lot of people use, but I love it. It was one of the more attractive things to get me to this place. I was like, you guys are using Elixir? I've wanted Elixir as a back-end service for the concurrency gods of Erlang forever. So yeah, that was super awesome. I was like, are you guys using an Elm front end? And they were like, no, it was a little disappointing, but they're using a TypeScript React architecture for the front end. It's pretty great. And then we just started making a DevOps culture platform team kind of thing. So we're really focusing on more of the infrastructure stuff for observability and things like that. And we didn't have that previously. We had some CI/CD in some environments. Don't get me wrong. We weren't completely just running wild, but doing some stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, what else you want to know? We're pretty modern.
So your team, are they remote? hybrid? What kind of model do you guys do?
All over the place. So we actually have one of more the eclectic engineering groups I've ever seen. So we have, people, we're all remote. We do have an office in Cincinnati where our CEO, Chris Collinsworth, is from. And, that is kind of used hybrid capacity for some of the people that live local. And if you live local, that's great. Go into the office as much as you want. There's no set days or anything. But a lot of our team, because we did start in the UK, is based in London. Or, we have people in Ireland. We have people in Scotland, two of my favorite people, actually. And then we also have people, all over the States. So West Coast, East Coast. We have someone in Hawaii. We have a number of offshore members. Some of our favorite team members are in India, and they're great. They do amazing work for us. So literally, if you take it from Hawaii through the UK, through India, we're in a lot of time zones. And so to get things done at times can be a challenge, but I do an excellent job at it. Better than a lot of places I've worked as far as balancing the work and who does what and when and communicating between those passing of the batons or the torches throughout the day. A lot of people struggle with that in your daily agile ceremonies.
So as head of engineering, with engineers spread out across almost every time zone, how do you make that work? Do you not sleep?
We joke about that. A lot of us, we're like, I don't think they sleep at all. One of the guys we work with, I'm positive he only sleeps 3 hours a night. It's our Hawaii guy. But I think we do it pretty well, making sure that we can be up stateside at 8 a.m. to catch our India counterparts and our UK counterparts and really work from that 8 a.m. to noon window and have everyone in.
Now, is that Eastern time or Pacific time?
So, and that's Eastern time. So if you're up from 8 a.m. Eastern and to noon Eastern, or, you're in a pretty good window to catch your counterparts on the right-hand side of your time window, you'll call it. And then when the day gets later, you have all of your West Coast constituents that start getting up and start collaborating. And so really you're in that sweet spot of leadership. If you're in anywhere from the Midwest to the East Coast, which a lot of us are, to be able to manage and kind of oversee people ending their days as well as people beginning their days and really kind of marrying the two together. But the way that it's spread out, it kind of works really nice. And I will say, if anything ever happens with our systems, somebody's always awake. There's definitely that is always covered. So kind of nice to have.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. So as head of engineering for one of the coolest companies I've ever heard, being a football fan, what's the biggest challenge, as we're in Q4 2025, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
I'll go back to what I was saying. It's really operational maturity with that leading edge stuff. It's a delicate balance doing that, incorporating the new technologies, especially we're dealing with proprietary and sensitive data. We can't afford a leak. It's one of those things, if we ever leak our information and another team gets another team's playbook or what they're looking at or what they're game planning for, we're done. We've lost all trust. We lost all accountability. That's never going to be something great for us. Making sure that you can ensure quality and really secure data transfers, as well as speeding up and optimizing, is really one of the toughest parts. And I'll also say, balancing offshore, nearshore, in-house, local talent, hiring from all those pools, making sure everybody aligns. There's a lot of cultural differences. There's a lot of personality conflicts, making sure those teams are running smooth and everybody has a balance of both personality as well as talent sets. I love that we have such a big pool to choose from, but it can be a lot as a leader to manage that. That stuff is pretty basic, pretty standard. I don't think I'm saying anything out of the norm anyone else doesn't deal with. I guess for us specifically, it's really staying ahead of the curve. The stuff that you're providing for people, you have to understand that as a sports team, you're always going to want just a 1% advantage, or it matters. You know what I'm saying? So making sure that we're always getting the latest data, the most cutting edge data, and that our data science models are providing something new for people to be able to understand and interpret, and that we're always able to deliver everything on time and accurately. It's really, really important. And as our data grows exponentially, it becomes harder and harder to do that. And we're actually in the middle of refactoring on some of our APIs and some of our data warehouses to be ready and scale those up, blue-green deployments, canary deployments, things like that, to make sure that we're not having any downtime, but we're still really optimizing all that. And me coming in right in the middle of all this, been a lot. It's a lot to drink from the fire hose and kind of digest all this strategic stuff, but it's been great. It's been great.
And so let's talk about AI and how your company, maybe start from an engineering organization, how you have or haven't been able to use AI into your processes and systems.
it's the buzzword of the millennium. We'll call
Yes, it is. And especially trying to explain it to non-technical people can be frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
And
don't need
really,
we don't need anyone at our company anymore. We have AI. Well, that's not how it works.
that's not how it works. And if you replace all your juniors with AI, then who's ever going to become a senior in 10 years? You're not, you're
True.
literally, you're eating your snake, right? You're eating yourself. So I don't understand how that works. But no, we very, very strongly wanted to invest in AI, especially when I first got there. Everyone was guns a-blazing. This is our number one priority. We had some, I thought, foundational things we needed to work on first. I made the analogy of putting rockets on a go-kart. You don't really want to do that. You're not trying to supercharge your stuff when you don't have proper infrastructure. So we pivoted. We worked on more infrastructure stuff on my side of the ball first and foremost. And now we're incorporating that into a lot of how we deliver the data. So we do have an MCP. We do have models we're training. We started like everyone did with a little AI assistant, called a chatbot, called it for whatever you wanted, started training the natural language models and the LLMs and really doing that part of it and seeing if we could get it to understand football language and plays and diagrams and things like that. And how can we train this and how can we make this intuitive? And that, so we did the in-house stuff and we're still doing that. We're still working on that. It's going well so far. I've been pleasantly surprised with how well we've done. It's really hard to hire for from what I've seen. My counterpart heads up a lot of the hiring for the AI team. And I can just tell from some of the looks on his face when he's done that, people are just, I see the resumes. They're like, oh, I've been doing AI for 20 years. I'm like, I love that. Yeah. When I was doing AI 10 years ago at a car inspection company, it was called machine learning. And I knew what that was. And we weren't doing anything with natural language processing because that didn't exist and it wasn't relevant. But I love that you've been doing AI for 20 years.
But that's what ChatGPT says they're supposed to say.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so we did a lot of in-house stuff, but we also use all the main great steps like ChatGPT, Gemini, a GitHub Copilot. And I'll say that as far as production for myself personally, being able to edit and, give it 7 bullet points and have it kind of greenfield all of my document and write up and process the stuff and really, kind of draft or over kind of edit and overview my emails or any of the stuff I have to do and proofread it first. I don't love the way it'll change my sentence structure because I want it to sound like me, but I do love the fact that it's basically like a Grammarly all in one. That helps. So, a lot of those tools for the coders and the leaders, we use all the industry standard stuff and that's been really productive and really helpful. And the in-house stuff is going well and we'll see. I mean, what I really want to see and what I'm still curious about is the full lifecycle development of AI tools, right? I know that everyone's working on them and some people are shipping them, but where are we going to be in 5 years? What's the maintenance cost of this? How does it really all come out in the wash? Because I remember when the web bubble hit and all that stuff happened and they had these great ideas of websites were going to be used for, how it's going to change the world. And it did in a lot of ways. There's a lot of stuff that was totally useless and that was bollocks, right? And it never turned out. So I'm kind of interested to see how that all works out for all the money people are investing in the internal tools.
Definitely a lot of hype around AI and a lot of realization of companies looking back, and MIT, others, their studies they've released over the past quarter are all pretty much saying that 95% of AI investments have zero or negative ROI. What's your take on that?
I think a lot of people are building before they have a market to sell to be totally honest with you. And I think it's working backwards. For years, businesses have thrived because they saw a market, they saw a place to make money, and they built the tools or the software to get there, not the other way around. And I see a lot of people just going headfirst into this, building AI tools and having no idea how to monetize it. And I'm like, I love that for you. We'll see again where you are in 5 to 10 years. And just being completely real with you, I was not a believer when I first started in it. I've become more of it once I've understood the science behind it. But it has a limited application mindset for now, and to dive a little bit into that, I just mean like, if you wanted to solve a chess game, it'd be great at that. But if you wanted it to do basic math, we've seen how that works out sometimes. And if you wanted it to do anything with pragmatism or logic, we're not there yet. And so I'd love to see
when the hallucinations set in.
Oh, it's like the kid on the playground that can't just say, I don't know. He just starts making stuff up. It's like, what's going on here? Who trained you to do this too? But yeah, I'd love to see where it's at in 5 years and see if we can get to more of the logic-based thinking. And if we do that, that's going to be really cool. And that's really where I'm interested to see if we can get there. But
from a pure software engineering perspective, if you had to label a productivity number that your team has seen,
yeah,
what range would you say? And having you on the show, talking to you, you clearly come off as a guy that doesn't bullshit, that tells it
Yeah.
like it is, which is why I wanted you on the show.
Yeah. No, it varies by person. Like I've got a couple devs that they use AI for everything. You know what I'm saying? Like everything they're running through it at least to just see if it has a better idea. And I think that their productivity definitely, I've watched it go up. I've watched their confidence go up. I've watched how they work go up. I'd give them up to 50%, but there's a lot of people that are terrified of it. They're old hat engineers. They don't want to use it. I try and get them to use basic stuff. I had a conversation with a guy the other day. I was trying to get him to use Figma. And he's like, he's using this 1995 UML diagram software that's so hard to use. And I'm like, all it is. And I pull it up and I go, drop the box on there. He's drawing the box. It came so intuitively. He just started using it. I'm like,
Figma's a great tool. Don't get me wrong, but that's not cutting edge. That's been
no,
around.
but you know what I'm saying? It's like, if I can't get you to use Figma, there's no way I'm getting you, GitHub Copilot to proofread your PRs. Like you're not going to hook that up. You're not integrating that into your IDE. You're not integrating that into your local environment. Like there's no way, so it's a struggle. I would say some people, 0%, they're not using it at all, and other people, they use it a lot. And I have seen the production increase. And at times I've seen the same thing that happens when you first start writing code. You spend 3 days debugging a problem that you created. And that happens too. So, you take the good with the bad, but overall, I'll just average it out to 10 to 20%, as an org. We'll say it's around there. And I love that. And I'll tell you right now, if you told me as an investor or someone doing any kind of business, if I can increase anything by 10 to 20%, I'd take it. So I think it's a good tool. I think it's been useful. But to your point, I don't know whether it's worth the price tag just quite yet.
And it's hard. A lot of things that'll get you 90% there, but the way it takes you that last 10% can be extremely difficult to get to. Most mature engineering organizations I've talked with, that 10 to 20% is the realistic number. You get your Mark Zuckerberg types who like to say, no, it's 5,000% productivity. In 5 years, I'll probably only need one engineer. I call bullshit, but
yeah, no, it definitely is. And I'd love to see where they're getting those numbers. Like, I'll be very honest. I just made that number up 10 to 20%. It sounds reasonable. I have no idea. I have no quantifiable metrics. You know what I'm saying? I don't have anything that's we're gauging actual productivity on. And I wish we did. I wish we were looking at how many comments we had in a PR and how often we were closing PRs and like some kind of SLA around that versus, hey, we implemented Copilot or Claude or whatever, into our system. And now it's helping with PRs. How fast are we closing those out? How much more productive are we? How many more bugs are we catching before, a test catches them or a QA person catches them? But I don't have those metrics. And anybody that says they do, I'd love to see it.
But if I asked you if a defensive end should be in a 3 or 4 point stance on third down with 15 or more yards, you could probably tell me exact.
A 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill, what yard line were they at? Yeah, absolutely. But down in distance, but yeah, absolutely. And there are things like that, but it's just, I don't know that, people actually measure the things that they say when they give these percentages. And I just, again, love to see the papers and the scientific work on that because I want to be that mature where I have actual metrics and attribution that are actually analyzing that stuff. But, I'm too busy worrying that Prod's going to fail tomorrow on Sunday Night Football while Chris is out there announcing a game and we're going to embarrass ourselves. You deal with what's right in front of you. And
true. And, we're all getting there. It keeps moving along. You train your team on a certain set of AI tools, and then another tool comes out. Their new version comes out with what the other ones don't have, and you got to weigh those things out. It's the exciting and frustrating times we live in.
Yeah. Well, it's keeping up with the Joneses, right? If somebody else has a shiny toy, you want it too. So, but yeah.
So, Toby, I wrote a book about my failures and my brutal lessons that I've had. Tell me some of your brutal lessons you've learned throughout your career that if you knew earlier, you would tell your younger self.
Yeah. I mean, as an individual contributor and as an engineer, I wished I had stayed humble a little bit longer and I'd continued to learn a little bit longer. I hadn't just taken the first tool I used or a tool I learned how to use and used it for everything. And then when I got into leadership, I wish I could have told my engineer side, the good ones actually do a lot up here. We're doing everything you do except for write the code and for everyone on scale. I really wish I could have known that and known what a good leader looked like when I was an engineer, but it's very hard to evaluate that. I just knew if they were nice to me or not, And then really into leadership, I'd say the biggest failure was just I thought everybody learned the same, wanted the same kind of a leader. I really wanted to focus on servant leadership and being somebody that was going to be there for my people because I knew how much it sucked to work long hours and not be appreciated. And that's just not the case. It's not. One, you can't make everybody happy. Two, you have to really be comfortable with being the villain. That old quote, you either live long enough to see yourself die the hero or become the villain, right? It's like you got to be okay with some uncomfortable conversations and the fact that you're in charge and you got to make difficult decisions sometimes. And, being best friends with one of your employees probably isn't always the best idea when some of those things come around that are out of your control because they're going to take things personally, and it goes back to the old adage of like, everybody's going through something at all times and just being that empathetic person. I wasn't there, maturity wise as a human being and as a leader when I first started. I knew how to write software and how to do that. And I thought that was enough. And as long as I took that with me, that was going to be enough to run companies successfully and to run teams successfully. Part of it gives you street cred. People know you're not full of crap when you're talking about writing code, but that's a very small percentage of your job, as you know, day to day when you're running a company. And it's a very small percentage of what makes you successful as a leader. So, yeah.
All good points and good lessons. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks.
A lot of people, Toby, talk about their careers, their journeys. You've had such a cool path on how you've evolved, the companies you've been able to touch. Yeah, it definitely will be exciting to see how you evolve the PFF engineering team and the output that's going out there. Before we wrap, what's your no BS advice for tech leaders out there today who are trying to build, scale, or even just survive in these crazy times?
One, keep on trucking, right? It's one thing. I work at a sports company, so I'm going to say this, but practice makes perfect. Just keep trying. Just because you failed doesn't mean you're a failure. Keep at it. Keep going. Keep fighting the good fight. Don't give up. Don't become jaded. Don't accept well enough. Strive for better.
Awesome. Thank you, Toby. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, well, I'm going to make sure your team doesn't get any of the stats that Toby and his team are putting together, or we'll just give them to your competitors. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time.
That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.